This is Dominick White. Obviously, I'm not Milton Bunton. We are doing another episode of When Ebenezer Talks, and we are honoring some clergy and interviewing those who's been in this field for a long time. And I thought, I told Pastor Bunton, I said, man, look, I'm visiting one of my closest friends. I said, we got to interview him. He was like, sure. So I'm here at the beautiful St. James Baptist Church, 536 West Florida Street in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I would love to introduce and present the others. My friend, my brother, from another mother, the Reverend Dr. Jerome Lee Jr. So we appreciate you taking the time, Wakanda forever, the time to do this interview with me. Mm-hmm. So we'll just start with where you grew up at, you know, your early times in church, where you go to church when you know, childhood days and stuff like that.
Yeah. I am born and raised in Hampton, Virginia, born in Newport News, Virginia, and raised and educated in Hampton, Virginia. That's my home. So Hampton born and Hampton bred, and someday when I die, I'll be Hampton dead. So no matter where I live, I'm coming back home.
Yeah.
But that's where I grew up at. I grew up as a child having to go to church. I grew up in two churches, really. Never joined either one. One was Third Baptist Church in Hampton, Virginia. My uncle was chairman of deacon board there for years. When I was with my grandparents in Newport News, we had to go to church with her, and she went to St. John's Church of God in Christ, where Bishop Samuel Green was the pastor when I was a kid coming up. So between those two churches, I guess I'm Kojic on one side and Baptist on the other. But those are the two churches I grew up in, but I never did join. Our parents was asking us to join, pushing us to join, but I never really joined. I never really joined the church. I was baptized until I turned 30, believe it or not. And I joined Gethsemane Baptist Church at the time, 3509 Chestnut Avenue. Bishop Dwight Riddick is my pastor. And when I joined Gethsemane in July of 1992 with my friend at the same time, quote unquote, who became my wife and is my wife today, Cynthia. So we're joined in July 92 and was baptized, I think like in October of 92. And then Pastor Riddick married Cynthia and I in that next month, November of 92. So that's where I joined, that's where I cut my teeth in ministry, that is where I learned, that is where I eventually acknowledged my gift, calling to preach, and I was licensed, and I was ordained and sent out to pastor, all up under Gethsemane Baptist Church.
And with you being called to preach, do you remember that experience? Like, what was it a dream? Was it something that happened that led you to say yes?
A call from across the hall or something. Yes, I do remember that. There was some things going on in my family that affected me personally, that I just disapproved of, and just so much was going on. And then there were things going on in my community that was that was destroying our community. And so, you know, after I was teaching Sunday school, and Pastor Northam was teaching, had just left Gethsemane to pastor on the Eastern Shore at Shiloh. And I was I was always in the Word. I was always studying. I was teaching young adult Sunday school and very attentive to Bible study and hanging around Pastor Riddick. And I just began to be burdened. I found out that I had the gift of evangelism, and I just loved talking to anybody and everybody about Jesus and what Jesus did for me and what Jesus can do for them. And then after doing that for a while, took a spiritual gifts class that was offered. And that's when I realized that that was not a norm for everybody. I was just so passionate about it, I found out that that was a gift. So with that, I ended up, the Lord gave me a scripture. I want to say it was Philippians 2:13, I think it was. Basically, the scripture said that it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. That was my convicting scripture. That to date, that's still my convicting scripture, which simply meant, interpreted that the Lord, the desire to preach was not given to me by Satan, of course. It was given to me by God. And he is able to give me what I need to do it. And so I ended up eventually accepting that call, and I ended up going to Pastor and telling him I believe the Lord. Well, first of all, I told Pastor that I believe the Lord called me to be a deacon. And Pastor said that the Lord doesn't call deacons. The church appoints deacons. Wow. The Lord calls ministers or preachers. And I was like, okay. So I got myself together and prayed, went back a couple of weeks later and told him I believe the Lord called me to preach. And then next thing I know, he said, okay, that's better. So we can work from there. And the first thing he told me was I need to go back to school. He wanted me to go back to school, and so I ended up going back to school. I found a Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. I ended up going there through satellite. And so I ended up going through there for about 2 years and graduated and finished it. And so not long after that, the pastor gave me the opportunity at a church meeting and told the church that I was going to do my initial sermon, which was, I did it in February of '96. And when I did my initial sermon in February '96, of course, from that point on, I've been preaching since. I was somewhat doing engagements without a license. You know, people invite you to come speak at their church or some at the facility where there's senior patients and stuff like that on certain days, and I was more than glad to do it. And so that was my start to preach the gospel.
And then you eventually hop on over to across the Chesapeake Bay, CBBT, as we call it.
Yeah.
And what, May of '99?
Exactly.
I mean, I met you beforehand. You used to come and you'll preach for Pastor Jones, and you'll come to my church, New Mount Calvary, and you'll preach there a couple times. I'm like, yo, who's this cat? And then eventually you end up coming here to Pastor Boston Road, Shiloh Baptist, aka the center of worship. So with this being your first pastoral assignment, what were some things that you come in, and I probably asked the same question again in a different way, but you coming from the Hampton area, the Newport News area, and you come into a rural area, which is, you know, kind of says slow pace a little bit, but what lessons from your pastor, from Dr. Riddick, kind of help you kind of get you in the groove of things with this being your first pastorate at Shiloh?
Well, one of the things, one thing I admire Pastor Riddick about is that Pastor Riddick groomed us, or attempted to groom us, and I allowed him to do that, pretty much by giving me responsibilities, such as the young adult ministry, such as teaching Sunday school. And so pretty much that prepared me for ministry to pastor. One of the things that really got me was when I started preaching, I was preaching often. I was hardly at Gethsemane on Sundays because I was always preaching somewhere.
Right.
One of the things I would honestly say, Pastor Riddick, when we got licensed, he encouraged us to go preach somewhere. You said you've been called, now go preach. You don't have to sit here every Sunday, and I'm not expecting you to sit here every Sunday, but go somewhere and preach. And to God be the glory. As my witness, my wife would tell you, every Sunday I was somewhere preaching. In fact, I would come home from church to see if anybody left any messages on my phone that need somebody to come preach. And fortunate enough, there was always somebody, and then doing revivals. Somebody always wants somebody to do a youth revival somewhere. Mm-hmm. And as I was doing that, Dominick, I was like, I was feeling the urge to pastor, and what made me, I had like a Nehemiah experience. That's the best way for me to put it. And that is, the Lord was blessing me. I was working full-time for the city of Hampton full-time. Had been there at that time, maybe about like 13, 14 years. I ended up leaving by faith to pastor and gave the city 15 years. But the Lord, I had like a Nehemiah experience. I was doing well with working for the city, good benefits, a decent salary as a heavy equipment operator, and then preaching. So I was pretty much doing well, but my soul was still disturbed, like Nehemiah, when I saw the ruins of my people. When I saw what crack cocaine was doing in my community, how it was destroying the community, how it was destroying on both ends of the spectrum, users and sellers. When I start seeing the devastation from it, the deaths from it, the jail time from it, it just really, really bothered me to the point was, you know what? I'm doing okay, but my people are not doing well at all. And that convicted me to start wanting a desire to want to help them in the form of pastor. The Eastern Shore, I preaching at Pastor Jones's church, to God be the glory, preaching at Mount Calvary. A couple of times when Pastor Northern was at Shiloh, he allowed me to preach, teach a workshop or two. And being that my wife was from there,
right.
I don't know, just a burden began to just overcome me to possibly maybe, want to help. And I hate to use that term, help, because it makes it sound like, it makes it sound like that the other have-nots and I have. It wasn't like that. It was just a burden to want to be a part of the Eastern Shore, especially when I found out that my family is from the Eastern Shore on my mother's side. And so, and Pastor told me that the Lord often gives you territory. And where have you been preaching the most? And I'm like, And I ended up on the Eastern Shore by vision of Pastor Northern, which I disagreed with. When he came to me and told me, I disagreed. I did not want to pastor on the Eastern Shore. Not because of the Eastern Shore. I didn't want to pastor at Shiloh because Pastor Northern was there. Right. And I did not want to go behind him because I did not want people to think that it was something that he'd done, and he and I were collaborating together on that. When he came to me and told me the Lord had a vision, I would be the pastor, he could tell you I disagreed, totally disagreed. In fact, I was more interested at Bethel and at Jerusalem, where Pastor Scott was. I sent them a resume that came back, P.O. boxes and all that stuff. That's when I first learned how rule work. But I was, trying to pass that Bethel, and so. But anyway, I ended up at Shiloh. Sent them a resume. Did not expect much, but it ended up I ended up being the pastor. And so when I got to the rural area, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to live among the people that I pastored. I didn't want to move all over the place. I didn't want to live across the bay and drive back and forth.
Like a suitcase pastor.
Yeah, I didn't really want to do that. Plus,
preacher.
Shiloh was looking for a full-time pastor, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I moved to the Eastern Shore, I wanted to live among the people that I pastored. So I ended up moving right in Boston. Little Boston, a door ended up opening, and I ended up right there living among the people. And I had no problem with it. I truly enjoyed it. I was accessible, which is what the Lord wanted me to do, to be accessible to them. And I had no problem with that. The Lord opened the door, and we lived among the natives, as they would say. And so, but to further your question, the comparison, there is a difference between rural ministry and, living across the bay. Rural ministry is rural ministry. Rural ministry, the rural community is totally different, because where I came from out of Gethsemane, it was pretty much city.
Right.
And of course, it's like revolving door. You got military, you got colleges who are always coming and going.
Right, yeah.
So they're with you for 4 or 5 years or more, then they move, just revolving door.
Right.
And so the Eastern Shore, when I moved to the Eastern Shore to pastor in the rural, I noticed rural ministry is different. Economic base is different. And so pretty much it is a slower paced life. You don't have accessibility to things so quick as you did when you were across the bay. Rural ministry is everybody knows what's going on in rural. In the city, everybody don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the rural, you're a fishbowl. My wife and I call it fishbowl. So with rural ministry, you're in a fishbowl, because when you're in the fishbowl, people can walk by and see the fish in the fishbowl. They can see Mr. Fish and Miss Fish are kind of far apart today. They can see Mr. Fish and Miss Fish kind of close today.
Yeah.
They can see Mr. Fish and Miss Fish done had some babies. They can see Mr. and Mrs. Fish. They can see the water is dirty. It needs to be changed. Rural ministry is a fishbowl ministry. They see everything. It's transparent. So you kind of have to walk circumspectly and upright, not to, taint the gospel ministry of Jesus Christ. One of the first things my pastor told us is that, he still tells us that to this day, keep your nose clean. Don't give folk stuff to talk about. That's definitely against the kingdom. Rural ministry is a talking ministry, good or bad. So I learned that. But rural ministry is good ground to do ministry, because there are souls to be saved. That's the most important thing.
And even while you were there for, 12 years?
Yes, 12.
99 to 2011.
Yeah.
What would you feel were some strengths as this is being your first time? Like you say, you being within the people now, you are now a fishbowl they see, and being transparent. What were some things that you took? What were some lessons that you took out of Shiloh, which led you here? Without not more so talk about St. James at the moment, but just what were some lessons that helped you transition here to now being back to urban ministry?
Some strengths that I can say that I learned. Well, let's start with in the rural. That's a good question. So some takeaway strengths. You might want to come back to that question. Might want to come back to that.
Okay. So
some takeaway strengths. Now let's tackle that. Well, some takeaway strengths is that, sometimes when you're pastoring for the first time, you want everything to go right.
yeah.
You come from a church that's progressive. Divinity was a progressive church. And when you come out of a progressive church, you come to a rural church and you want to bring progress to them. And progress don't happen as fast. I think one of the mistakes I think I have made, not just me, I think others who may come from cities, is that you think you're going to change the rural church, and you're not going to change the rural church. Rural church is going to always be rural. Doesn't mean they have to be. It doesn't mean that they have to be behind. It doesn't mean that they have to be, pretty much an old church that just don't have an up to date. But however, you're not going to change the rule. The rule is, and I learned that from one of my books I used to read. The guy's last name was White. I was trying to think of that name of that book. But Emery White, I think was his name. The rule ministry is designed to be rule. That is a lesson I think you'll learn quick. But one of the things that I have learned with rule ministry that I brought here, I would truly say, is that pretty much rule ministry will discipline you real fast on how to love.
Wow. Yeah.
We preach love, talk about love, but let me tell you, rule ministry will teach you the discipline on how to love. It'll help you lower your expectations of people. And those are qualities that you end up bringing with you when you end up, leaving, if you decide to do that, to a city or urban ministry. The context is different. I hope I answered your question. I don't know if I didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think that I answered his question.
I'm literally thinking of it as I go along, but and then with your strengths, like you said, possible weakness is more so having to lower what you see in people because they may not be as progressive as what you think where you came from. So you moving from Boston or Painter, depends on where you get your mail from, to now Punkatig, to now.
No, I got my mail at Bellhaven.
Oh yeah, you did get it from Bellhaven. And to now, here at
get my mail at my house.
Mail at your house in Greensboro. and you've been here really almost the same amount of time, 12 years.
You know what's weird? When I hate to use that term left, but when I transitioned from Shiloh to St. James, I went to Shiloh in May of 99. I got called here in May of 2011. My anniversary at Shiloh was in October. I got installed here in October. So my anniversary service, that what would have been my what would have been my 13th anniversary there was my installation here.
Yep.
It's like God kept the ball. It's weird. It's like God said, Jerome, don't worry, I'm keeping the ball rolling. You ain't gonna miss a beat. Celebration anniversary, celebration of installment, same month. And to this day, I celebrate my installation in October.
Yep.
Celebrate my day of arrival in May. It's like the Lord just kept the ball, didn't miss a beat, kept the ball rolling. And
you hear it, like I said, 536 West Florida Street, Greensboro, North Carolina. 27406. And you coming here, I'm sure this is they're a little bit faster in progression than it was in Hampton and Newport News, basically with it being a Tri-City area. What have you enjoyed as a pastor here?
And here in Greensboro? I have enjoyed it all. And when I say all, I mean, I don't look at this as a step up. Somebody said years back, somebody said, when they found out I was leaving Shiloh, they said, man, Lee is, the Lord has blessed Lee, and he's moving to a bigger church, and the Lord moved him up, and I had to fix that. I never looked at it as a step up. I always looked at it as a transition. The Lord's transitioned me from rural to urban. I believe that transition had a whole lot to do with me being faithful where I was. I believe the scriptures to be faithful over a few. The Lord will make you trust you, make you ruler over many. It's not. That's not after we die. That's why we live it.
Right.
So I believe me, and I'm not tooting my horn by far, but I truly believe my faithfulness where I was opened the door for the Lord to trust me where I am. What I love about St. James, St. James is a loving church. St. James is a loving church.
Totally agree.
St. James is a loving.
Totally agree.
St. James is a worshiping church.
Yeah.
They love good preaching. They love good singing, and to just live in Greensboro just somewhat takes me back home, almost, kind of. Of course, urban living, you have accessibility to recreation.
Yeah,
you have accessibility to highways to go where you want to go. College campuses, major hospitals, schools, shopping, whatever you like to do, accessibility to other cities. That's why they call it the Triad. You got High Point, you're not far from Durham, you're not far from Winston-Salem, where my wife works. You're not far from like an hour and 15, 20 minutes from Charlotte.
Right.
You can go NFL games, NBA games. It's just it's a different life, but the ministry is still the same. It's still about saving souls, and so I pray that this is my last stop. I'm not trying to go to another church. Almost 25 years of pastoring. I'm not. I'm 61. I do not want to pick up and pack up and start this all over again somewhere else at 61. I pray that this is my last stop. I want to do something else in life other than pastor.
Well, I mean, I also seen when it comes to, I'm gonna kind of pick with St. James, not in a bad way, but from Shiloh to here, you went from how many, 3 or 4 associate ministers to now, how many here?
You need one? I'm just joking. 9.
9. So, how has the relationship been between your associate ministers here? Because I asked that because I know there are some pastors that don't have a working relationship with the associate ministers, or they feel, or the associate ministers feel like they have some kind of power because they feel like they are second chariot to the pastor, more so of assisting the pastor.
I have a wonderful relationship with my associate ministers. We have a wonderful relationship. They allow me to pastor them. They call me pastor. I meet with my associates once a month. Now, I will say, since return of COVID, we kind of fell off a little bit.
Right, I'm
but
touching on that too.
I do things with them. I treat them like my pastor treated us.
Right.
I hold them accountable. At the same time, I meet with them. There are certain books I recommend that they read. They go get them. We discuss them. You know, I want to build them like my pastor built us.
Yeah.
And so I treat them all the same, male and female. And so I give them opportunities to preach sometime when I'm not going to be here. But you know, they don't fight over the pulpit.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
I noticed that too.
I tell them the same thing my pastor told me. You know, plenty of vacancies out there to go preach at. Plenty of preaching opportunities. But we have a wonderful relationship and a respectful relationship, and it's one that I definitely admire. They pretty much they help out around here at the church. They teach Sunday school or they teach some kind of ministry. They are involved in other ministries other than just being associate ministers. They do other stuff. And so I do appreciate that very much. And
I know, well, one who was associate minister is now a pastor, my man, Dingle.
Dingle, yeah.
So what was your advice to him, him being a young pastor now, and pastoring a congregation that's under him now? So what was some advice some sound advice that you gave him to kind of help him transition to now being from associate minister at St. James
to a pastor,
to now pastor at Ebenezer?
One of the things I told him when he went to his church is that learn to discern what is church business versus what's family business.
Wow.
I told him that because a lesson that I learned at Shiloh. All of those persons in that church are familiar with each other. They either went to school with each other, they grew up together, they played together, they got children by each other, they married each other, they divorced each other. So you have to be careful going into a church when they're all familiar with each other. Be careful, because don't be taking sides. You know, there's always side A, side B, and side C. It's always, you know, what he said, what she said, then there's the truth. And sometimes you don't find out that truth until later on you find out, you know, what the truth really is. But that's one thing I told him. You know, I said, you know, they're familiar with each other. They already know each other. And the other thing I want him to understand too, was that, and I hate to say this, but it's factual, and that is sometimes the members have an edifice complex, which means they have more of a allegiance to their church than they will sometimes to you.
Right.
Because that's their church.
That's their church, right.
10 generations of Joneses and Smiths and Lees and whatever their last names are. So they have a sense of ownership. And so their thing is they have what I call an edifice complex, and I wrote that when I did my D-Min work. They have what they call an edifice complex. They feel that that's their church. And their mama, their grandmama, their granddaddy, their great-granddaddy, their great-grandmama, you know, 5 generations of Browns, 6 generations of Browns. You're talking about a church that's 150 years old. So how many generations of Browns have been through there? And then you come as a pastor. Hey, you know, their thing is they feel they can get another pastor. And sometimes they'll treat you like that. but we can't get another church. This is our church. We can get another pastor. Pastors come a dime a dozen. So in their head.
Yeah, and that's just with any young preacher, because it seems like it has been a period where, you know, young preachers would act so progressive and want to change so quick.
And that's
no matter if it's a family church,
exactly.
if it's a multicultural church, they want to, because they see somebody on TikTok, they see somebody online,
or the church they came out of.
Or the church they came out of is not doing what you're doing. But at the same time, if God called you there, why are you rushing the process from where you came from? If that's where God wants you to progress from, He ain't gonna do it overnight.
Which is one of the things I told him, was what my pastor told us. For the first year, maybe the first 2 years, go in there and pastor from an observation point. Take your notes.
Yeah.
Find out who is who. Before you remove Miss Jones, find out who her kids are. Before you chastise and rebuke Minister Applebum, you better find out who Minister Applebum connected to.
Right.
Because when you go in a church and the first year or two and start changing stuff, you oftentimes don't do too well. I went in Shiloh as the first, I did it for about a year and a half or two. I didn't change nothing. I didn't change nothing because I wanted to see who was who, what was what, before I changed anything. Another thing too is that sometimes, and I learned this, is that, you know, sometimes you find out, I hate to say that you're not the pastor, but sometimes you find out there's a second voice in that church who can speak for you or who could be a detriment too. You have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
I could say something, I could do a workshop and say something and try to get the church to move forward and buying into this idea or buying into what I believe or what I re-envision, trying to get a buy-in from the people, and they're a little slow to buying into it. Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so or Deacon So-and-so could say the same thing, and they say, oh yeah, okay, let's do that. I'm like, that's the same thing I said. So, again, you know, it's trying to get persons to have an allegiance to you, which takes a little time.
And what about, since we're on the, I guess we could say the millennial pastoral leadership, what about when you pastor and you're single versus you coming in single but not coming in, you know, with, you know, a wife or a wife bringing a husband and a family, you know, is the dynamic a little different?
Well, every church is different. Every church has its own personality, their own needs, and their own discretions of what they want in a pastor. Some churches refuse to have a single pastor. Some churches refuse to have a female pastor.
Okay. Yeah.
Some churches have no problem with a female pastor.
Right.
Some churches have no problem with a single pastor. It's at the discretion of that church what they want. So a single pastor, if that's what they want, that's what they put out there and advertise, that he or she could be single. If that's what they want, you know, there's always, you know, stipulations of, you know, there's always certain stigmas that go with a single preacher.
Right.
I don't, you know, get into that.
Right.
I've been married for 30 years.
Amen.
I came in with my wife, and Lord's will,
I'm coming out with her.
I'm leaving here with my wife. You know, it's up to that particular church. I don't, you know, there are single people who are doing well.
Yeah.
You know, not saying they didn't have no challenges, but they're doing just as well as somebody who's married.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not against it. That's what your church, that's what the majority of the government, if they all agree, that's what they want, single pastor, God be the glory.
Well, you know, I mean, I think I'm hearing and I'm asking questions, but I want to lead into 2020. And you had it announced to your church, hey, we're not going to be in here. We got to go outside when the pandemic hit. So now you're not only pastoring inside, now you're pastoring from the outside now because nobody can't come in. So one, what were some challenges? And then two, what were some things that you had to, or projects that you had to kind of do to kind of get it ready to come back? Because you came back in Palm Sunday, 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So what did you do when that first Sunday of you, and then you had your praise team, there's nobody in here, and you preaching to an empty congregation, empty pews, and nothing but a camera, and then sometimes outside on the on a pickup truck or whatever,
on the church's campus.
On the church campus, you know. How was that? Well, like, because I know everybody's a little different in terms of that, but you having a membership of at least 550, and you doing 7:45 to an 11 o'clock service. Now it's to 9 o'clock, one service. You're in your cars, and you're outside.
Let me back up to when I was first told about this COVID thing coming this way. I remember when I first found out about COVID coming this way, I'm like, really? What is it really all that, you know? Like you said, having 7:45 service and 11 o'clock service every Sunday, I loved it. I miss it. And that's when my pastor friends like, I don't miss it. I miss 7:45 and 11, I ain't gonna lie. I expected 7:45, I enjoy it. Man, I'm gonna tell you, hear me, I enjoy 7:45. And I enjoy 11 o'clock, I just enjoyed it, I had no problem with it. But I remember when I found out that COVID was coming this way and there were churches that were closing, I just couldn't imagine closing a church. I mean, in my lifespan, never heard of a church closing. I remember in January, at one of our deacons' meeting, in February, I remember telling the February deacons meeting, I remember downstairs telling them that, you know, we're gonna have to possibly close the church down, you know. And that, you know, COVID-19 was coming in, it was what it was doing to people, and businesses was closing, hospitals, doors, and churches. Now, I think that next month I had to announce that church was closed. I had to get to tell the deacons you can't go visit anybody at their homes or hospitals. And so church was closed, and then I ended up, nobody even came to church for anything. I ended up doing church from my house on my laptop on Sunday morning. Like, I can't remember what it was like at 9 o'clock or something. And I can't remember all of what we did, but it ended up changing Sunday school, because we're big on Sunday school. We love Sunday school. And I boast on St. James come Sunday school. St. James,
our Christian education team.
St. James is a learning church, love to learn, and prides itself on Sunday school. Sunday school was major and still is major, doing well. But it changed everything, and then we started having the services here, and it was just myself, 1 or 2 praise members, maybe 3 or 4 praise members, and the media ministry up there, and that was different. Nobody was in church, maybe like 1 or 2 people, and that was it. And preaching to the camera more so than the pews. And so that really changed things for us. But we kept up with stuff. But what it did to me, believe it or not, COVID was a growth spurt for me, because I engaged myself in keeping up with what's going on. A lot of webinars and seminars. I was part of KCP, still am, and Bishop Thomas would have video stuff once a month where he would meet with pastors. My pastor would be on there, a whole lot of other pastors. Stuff like that just kept us going and connecting with other pastors, finding out what's going on, what they're doing, other teaching seminars over here, webinars over there. And so just staying involved and trying to keep St. James going was my main focus. What do we need to do? What is it that we, can't do? What can we do? And so eventually, by doing that, we were still able to function. We were still able to financially keep the church going. We did not lose any monies. Then eventually, when we started talking about coming back, then we started coming back with masks. Then we had to kind of update our media stuff a little bit. We were blessed to already have some media stuff going. We had to update how we give, so we did Givelify, so people can give through Givelify. We had to update some stuff. Then we had to update. We didn't want people touching everything, so we had to update our bathrooms where stuff was, touchless soap, touchless dispenser, towel dispenser, and put up signs around the church that mask required. We didn't do any funerals for a while. Then we did eventually start doing funerals, but a lot of them were done. I had a few members who died from COVID. Most of their funerals were either outside at the graveside, or either graveside or either at funeral homes. Then we started letting people in for funerals here. We only allowed a small number, mostly just the family if we could. Saints and friends had to just not come. But we made it possible for them to see the funeral, because we would video funerals, but we wanted family members to be here, and we had a limited number of how many can come in. Then eventually we started coming back to church slowly with a low number, mask required. I tried to do everything I could to keep in touch with my members. I wrote them letters. I called them on the phone. I tried to make sure I stayed in touch with my sheep. That's one of the things. Now, I'm not saying I 100% talk to every last one of them all the time. But I will say, I would like to think that I did everything that I could to stay in contact and stay in touch with my members, to let them know I'm doing fine. Secondly, how are you doing? If they need anything, we help them wherever we could. Then we started doing stuff in the community with food giveaways and doing stuff in the community, free COVID tests, and all these kind of things to keep the community going and keep the church going. But then, like you said, Easter Sunday, when we realized we can come back now, we came back Easter Sunday, mask required, and so Palm Sunday, people came back to church. We pumped it up. You can come back to church.
Yeah, I did.
And people came.
Yeah.
People came. I think people were tired of being in the house.
They wanted to just get out for a couple hours.
Tired of watching on TV. They missed that koinonia. They missed that fellowship with one another. I missed them.
Yeah.
I really did. I don't care what nobody says. It's nothing like fellowshipping with your people. It's nothing like the hugs. It's nothing like the handshakes. Yeah. It's nothing like the little kids coming up to you. It's nothing like you rubbing their little heads. It's just, I'm a social butterfly. And so it was just, to me, it was just nothing like it. When everybody came back, it was a joy, and it still is a joy. The only thing now is everything now is like time sensitive now. You know what I mean? You have to be
looking at that clock up there now.
Yeah, everything is time sensitive. You gotta, and I get it, because, I did a lot of research, a lot of studying. I did a lot of reading, a lot of highlighting. I did workshops for the church, a lot, to let them know how ministry is going to be now.
Yeah.
everybody's not coming back.
Yeah.
Some people, are going to be just virtual members from now on. Some going to be in person and virtual.
Yeah.
And I understood that and still understand that.
And I ended with this question of what's coming up, but I know from before COVID, you were starting a capital campaign leading up to a new St. James, and I know it kind of got cut short because of COVID, and now you kind of got it back up running, get ready to do some things. So how was the process leading your people from, was it 2018-ish? You started the campaign, 2017, 2018?
I think we started maybe around like 16.
16?
Let me see, 17, 18. I think it was like 16.
16.
Yeah.
So what did God show you to kind of say, you know what, God's showing me, I think we're ready for a new edifice, something new, a new journey for us.
Yeah.
And I mean, I won't go no further. Hopefully you can tell where you're at now.
Yeah.
But how was that feeling to wake up and God said, hey, I got a new church for you. Let's go ahead and get this going.
Numerically, St. James has been a growing church.
Yeah.
In my tenure, since my tenure here, I can honestly say I don't think too many Sundays went by where somebody didn't join.
Right.
And with that, of course, new ministries were being birthed. Mm-hmm. And along with that, and then also with this present edifice not being up to what could meet today's standards of a church. Mm-hmm. This edifice was, as you can see, is in excellent condition.
Yeah.
But it is not up to snap to do 21st century ministry. We don't have the technology and, it's just certain things that are not where they should be. And so one of the things I remember, saying to the church is that we need to consider building a edifice or updating a church that will be 21st century. And so I kind of had done my homework a little bit. It was going to cost millions of dollars to bring this church up to meet 21st century ministry. With the cost of that, we may as well build a whole new building and then maybe make this a second phase or second project. Mm-hmm. And so, talking to the leaders of the church, pretty much giving them what I envision, what I believe, what I see, what God is doing for us right now, we all agreed. So I was already familiar with Enjoy through Pastor Riddick used Enjoy, New Psalmist used Enjoy, Pastor Billy Curtis, a couple other pastors. I was in a workshop with KCP some years back when Enjoy did a presentation, and I always said if we ever need to raise some money, I want to get them to do it. And so I brought the idea with Enjoy. Enjoy came in, we signed a contract to do a 3-year capital campaign. They assessed our needs. Well, they assessed our membership. They assessed what comes in, and they assessed our expenditures and so forth. And they looked at our vision, and we believe through them guiding us that we could raise $1 million in 3 years. Now I know some might say, $1 million in 3 years? You sure? By faith, we went at it, and to God be the glory in those 3 years. And then we got an architect to design what we wanted, and in 3 years we did raise the $1 million. We raised over the $1 million. Wow. And so then COVID came. COVID came, And that just changed the whole trajectory of how we gonna do church now. So what we discovered was the edifice that the architect designed was not gonna do us any good now, because that design was built on seats. That was going to hold a little over 800, I think 840, I think it was, seats.
Wow.
Compared to what you see now is about 375 if you want to add the balcony. 325 maybe if you want to add the balcony. Because at first we were doing the balcony here, and then we had spill over downstairs.
Right, yeah.
Another
right.
TV. And so now we were like, wow, well, now we have an edifice that's just too big. And so we decided to, the Lord put in my spirit, to talk to the church about getting another architect that could design something more 21st century, more high tech. And so when we got with the architect, he saw what we had at first. We looked at how many people come to church now, how many people are virtual, and we decided that we are still going to build, but it won't be as big. But we're going to put more money into infrastructure. Which was a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's funny you asked that, because we've been meeting with the architect for a while now. On October the 4th, in a couple of weeks, on a Wednesday night, we're going to have a reveal of what the new church was going to look like.
Sweet.
Yeah, on October 4th. So the anticipation, the members are excited, I'm excited, but I try to make sure, Dominick, that we don't lose momentum.
Yeah.
Because people are kind of like, anticipating, when we gonna build? Are we still gonna build? When we gonna build? Are we still gonna build? Are we still gonna build? When we gonna build? Are we still gonna build? Yes, we are. And so on October 4th, we're gonna have a reveal right here in the sanctuary of what the new building will look like. And I will truly say, I think they're gonna love it.
And I'm going to end with this. I would talk about your love for music and how you love music. I mean, you know the history, you know where they came from. You probably knocked on that house for autographs. You've been to every concert. Probably been to Patti LaBelle's concert 30
I seen
times.
Patti about 2 times.
But we'll do a fun one for you. What was your first concert you ever?
The first concert I ever went to in my life was in the 4th grade. You talking maybe about 1972? My father took me and my brother to see the Jackson 5 at the Hampton Coliseum.
Wow.
That was my first concert I ever went to in my life, was the Jackson 5. Michael, Jermaine, Tito, Marlon, and Jackie.
And out of all of them that you've been to, because you've been to a lot, which is your favorite?
The best concert I ever went to?
Yes, sir.
Woo. Oh,
I
Lord.
think I know, but I'm going to see if you answer the one I think it is. Because I think I know which one it is.
Man. Maybe Phil Collins in Genesis?
I was thinking, was it
Parliament?
Funkadelic? Which one was with the spaceship?
That was Parliament.
Parliament.
I was there when they did that too.
And you said when the spaceship came down.
Man, I was in awe, man, to see that, man. Yep. Yeah, I think I seen Parliament like 3 times. Because they always came back, that Mothership Connection concert, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That one. The NBA concert, Aqua Boogie, that, and then I saw the One Nation Under a Groove tour with Flashlight. So that's 3 times I've seen it.
And you seen a Prince concert?
I've seen Prince twice. Frankie Beverly.
Of course.
Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh, sure.
Stephanie Mills.
Oh,
Isley Brothers. Barcades.
made no sense.
Madonna.
Madonna?
I went to a Madonna concert by myself. My friends were like, Madonna? You going to see? I said, I sure am. And I tried to see U2 with Bono, man. That sold out in no time. I didn't get a ticket. Van Halen.
Madonna?
I went to Madonna. Yeah, I went to see Madonna.
You ain't seen no Average White Band?
I didn't never see the Average White Band. I saw Regina Bell. I saw her in D.C.
Okay.
Frankie Beverly, I seen like twice. I seen them in D.C. and I saw them in Hampton. A couple of jazz guys I seen back in the day. Kenny G, Fusion, Herb Alpert, who played trumpet. I saw them at the Hampton Jazz Festival a lot of times. I saw them. Yeah, I love my music.
Yeah, you do?
It's our history. It's our history. How could you not?
Yeah, I mean, I got about 2 terabytes of me
How could you not
listening
love
from
our
you. Hey, get this.
Yeah.
And I get them, like Johnson & Johnson and
oh man, my Brother Johnson.
Brother Johnson,
Ohio
I mean,
Players.
Brother Johnson and
Oh, Peter.
yeah.
That's my number one favorite. Number one. If I had to put them in order.
Boosie.
I seen Boosie. I seen Rick James about 3 times.
So,
Cameo. I seen Cameo.
Yeah.
I seen Mass Production. I done seen Midnight Star, Atlantic Star.
Atlantic Star, which, by the way, one of the members are from Greensboro, by the way. LTD is also from Greensboro.
That you got me on that. That's
LTD is from Greensboro. So
yeah, but that's me. That's me.
And I ended with this. Why you love pastoring, and would you do it again? Would you do it all again?
You know what I love about pastoring, and I know it's challenging. Nobody would never understand out there. They never understand. It's demanding. You know, it's demanding, but it is a chance to serve God, and you serve God through serving His people, His sheep. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, it's just the most rewarding thing I've ever done."
Right.
It is the most disciplined life you will ever live. No one will ever understand that but another shepherd.
Yeah.
Sometimes spouses don't get it, don't understand.
Yeah,
Sometimes spouses' children don't understand. But it is the most rewarding thing that a servant can do for God. So, I'm glad I was not naive when I went into it. I was not naive. I didn't expect, well, I'm just going to pastor a church and they just going to love me. I'm going to love them. We're going to love and everybody going to love everybody. You know, if you come in with that mentality, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. My pastor said to me when I first got Shiloh, and he was spot on it, and I will tell someone else that same thing. It's funny. People who didn't vote for you, who are all in your corner when you first go in, the tables turn. Those who were not for you when you first got there end up being for you and loving you.
Yeah.
And those that were pushing you when you got there and receptive of you when you first got there turn out to be those ones that not so at the end. The tables, I don't know why that dynamic is, but it pretty much turned, you know. And so the pastor told me that was going to happen, and it did, you know. So, you know, it helped discipline me to lower my expectations. They're sheep. They're sheep. That's what you have to remember. That's one thing I learned. My pastor helped me to learn. I learned it on my own. At the end of the day, they're sheep. And sheep will always behave like sheep. Good side, bad side. A shepherd is always supposed to be different from a sheep. You know, and so I don't quote too much T.D. Jakes stuff, but he said this years ago, when shepherds bleed. You know, sometimes the blood that's on the pastor is not his; it's from the sheep.
Yeah.
So, when shepherds bleed, when I bleed, the sheep can come to me and get their blood on me, but when I bleed, when I cry, who do I go to?
Who you run to?
Who do I go to?
Yeah.
You know. So, the only person that I can go to is God, and God may not come when I want him to, but I have seen God. I have seen God do some miraculous stuff, really. Things I didn't want him to do, and things I wanted him to do.
Yeah.
I have seen God. I'm not saying I had him on the dial.
Right.
But I have seen God come to my rescue. Literally. Without a doubt. Wow. So I love it because I love to see, nothing brings a pastor more joy than to see people transform.
Yeah.
Come off the street one way and end up in the Lord's house another.
Yeah.
That is the joy.
Yeah.
I can look at that male chorus, man, and say, man, I remember when that brother, man, leading that song. I remember when he came in here 5 years ago. Or that brother on that first pew with that collar on. Man, I remember 8 years ago when that joker came here, man. You know, I'm sure somebody said that about me.
Yeah. Me too.
You know, so that's the joy of it all. Church is supposed to be transformative. You come in church and you still the same 8-10 years ago, man. Ain't nobody's fault but yours. You can't even blame nobody but yourself.
You keep coming in with the same problem and you don't work on the problem, then it's not the church's fault.
Yeah.
That's you.
So
that's a personal personal problem.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you know, pastoring will discipline you. You know, sometimes you're gonna cry. You might not cry in front of them sheep, but sometimes you'll cry. Pastoring will raise up every emotion in the human body. Wow. Every emotion that God put in you, you're gonna experience them.
Wow.
So, but you just can't wear your feelings or your emotions on your sleeve.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't do it at all. Sometimes you want to do it, you know. But I wouldn't take nothing. I wouldn't. If I can wind back the time, I wouldn't take nothing for it. I really wouldn't.
But that's sound advice, because it's like I was talking to your administrative assistant, and I was telling her, I said, you know, I'm not a blood PK. I'm more of a honorable mention. Yeah. But I've been around guys like you and Pastor Bunton and my pastor, Pastor Smith, and pastors now retired, Felton Sessoms, and the late Brian Nixon, and
my buddy and friend,
my man,
who has a cousin in this church.
Got a cousin here. My man Jesse Thomas and Charles Kellum, Dr. Charles Kellum, and just being around you guys, it's like, and then to have, I hear it, you don't have to share stuff, but I can tell just by y'all sharing, it's like, pastoring is definitely not an easy job, and it's hard to. Somebody a pastor used to tell me one time. He said, sometimes he can't share stuff with other pastors because of the trust value. You don't know if they're gonna go back and run and tell it, because you may be doing better or you're progressing more than what they're doing. So you tend to keep it in here, and makes it even harder, because then I don't even want to go into depression. Or mental health, because like you said, every emotion comes out. Not saying you felt into some kind of depression or some low level mental illness, but they don't understand like all that stuff that they come to you about. That's on you as the role of you being a pastor.
Let me say this too. You would think that there would be a close camaraderie with all pastors, because we are pastors, we're shepherds.
We're shepherds, yeah.
But there's not. There's not a close camaraderie with all pastors. I don't identify with all pastors.
Right.
all pastors don't identify with me either.
Right.
So we have to pick who we confide in.
Yeah.
That's why, if nothing else, I thank God I have a pastor.
Right. Absolutely. A covering.
A covering.
A spiritual covering.
Because every pastor,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but every pastor don't have a pastor.
Right. Yeah.
Every pastor needs a pastor because he has to have someone he can confide in, but he also has to have someone that he's obligated to. You see what I'm saying? So we have to have a sense of obligation. So who are we obligated to? I mean, I know we're obligated to our churches, but
Right.
you know, who do we? Well, this term I want to use. Every pastor has to have a sense of accountability to somebody.
Yeah.
I'm a pastor. I get it, but at the same time, I am still accountable. My pastor still holds me accountable. We talk monthly,
Right.
once a month, all of the sons with pastor. Zoom, conference call. Pastor still holds us accountable. What you doing? Why are you doing that? You know, not that he's challenging us to a certain degree, rebuking us. It may have to be a rebuke, depends on what's going on.
Right.
But my point is, I think one of today's problems, and again, with the younger pastors coming up that I see, is they don't have no accountability to anybody. They seem to be jumping in this thing and moving too fast and getting these titles too quick, and there is no discipline over the years.
Yep.
It's like, you know, one author says we live in a .com world. Click it and you got it. Mm-hmm. That's the world in which we live. You'd be surprised at pastors right now who don't have a pastor, or they're up under somebody, they only been up under them for a year, and they're already moving faster than me. Everything comes to them. They just don't seem to have any longevity. You know, that's Pastor Harley Wilson said something to me one time years ago. I'll never forget it. It stuck in my mind. He said, "Lee, y'all guys coming up now are just about the last of a dying breed."
Oh,
I'm like, man.
Man, I have heard 3 pastors say the same thing.
And I was like, really, you know?
But he's right.
When I see why he said that and look how things are now with ministry and the way things are coming up.
It's a whole new ball game.
I mean, everybody wants to, again, I'm just not knocking. I'm just saying what I see. I mean, you know, they'll start a church. I call them hot spots.
Hot spots.
They'll start off on fire. They'll start off at the church. They got everybody coming over there, everybody going over there, and 2 years from there, you kind of heard about them, asked about them, they done dissolved.
Yep.
Everybody will run over there. It's the hot spot to go to for a little while, 2 years maybe 3, boom. They ain't there no more.
Yeah.
You know, and I heard another pastor say this: it's a difference in a church blowing up than it is from a church that's growing up.
Wow.
You know, so some of these younger churches come up, they blow up quick.
Yeah. But nobody.
They have no longevity.
Yeah.
They fizzle on out. Everybody's dissolved. You don't hear about the pastor no more. Mm-hmm. He's coming up and he wants everything, get everything quick. You know. Versus a church that grows up is much stronger. Much stronger.
It may not go as fast, but
but they grow. But they grown.
They're getting water. They're getting rooted. They're getting all the nutrients that they need for it to last longer versus just going up and then die.
And sometimes, and I know we get ready to end, but if I could say, that's one of the things that really helped me when I was on the Eastern Shore. And I'm not saying this in a demeaning way, but it's my truth. Sometimes you can want more for people than they want for themselves. And what happens is it will exhaust you
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know what happens? You end up outgrowing them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like a plant. I mean, I started off as a little shoot coming out the pot. Then all of a sudden I start growing, then I start growing, then I start spreading, and all of a sudden you be like, man, this plant is too big for this pot. So the Lord reaches down and uproot, take out that pot that you're in and put you in a bigger pot.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I just got more space.
You got more space to deal with.
You know, and then you grow from there. But I just look at, you know, now, man, ministry, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know, man. It scares me, man. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm just saying what I see and what other older pastors who've been pastoring with some longevity will say and see is that, I always question, I know God's church gonna always have some witnesses. I know God's church gonna always have a remnant. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I question tomorrow's church.
Yeah, that's
the institutionalized church.
I mean, from the videos I've seen, it's not looking good.
You know,
I don't even know how God could be glorified in the stuff that I've seen.
It's I don't know, man. Yeah.
But we definitely, you know, I just definitely pray that even with you being here and if this being your last stop, that a legacy that you leave here and those behind you, but more, you know, definitely you leading them to a new edifice. Hope in the next couple of years that it'll be they'll still keep that same energy and still continue to grow. It won't be just a blow-up church, but more of a grow-up church.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I succeeded. The previous pastor, Pastor King, and then before him was Pastor Graves. You know, I just try to, you know, I'm not them. I don't try to emulate them. I don't try to be them. I try to be who I am for such a time as this. So when I do leave here, I'm fine. They don't have to put a statue out front.
No, just get you a rocking chair for you and Sister Lee sit out and rock chair on Sunday morning.
That's one thing I'm not bent on. They don't have to, you know, they don't have to put a bronze statue out front on the property out there.
And you sure ain't coming fit in no back row talking about I'm gonna come first Sunday sing for the men, not come the rest of the month.
I just want to live for Jesus and die in Jesus.
There you go.
All my rewards may not be earthly.
Hey.
So I just pray when I get to the Lord, I just hear two words.
2 words, yep.
Well done. Pastor Riddick said to me one time, scripturally, the Lord rewards faithfulness. Yeah. They didn't tell me I had to do all this. They didn't tell me I had to do all of that. What the Lord did require of me is that I be faithful. And that's what I pray I continue to do. Just be faithful. That's all I can ask.
Well, Doc, I really appreciate this heart to heart.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe I'll come back down next year. We'll see. Maybe we get to see I get to see the progress. Maybe some groundbreaking.
I hope so. I do. Please pray.
Because I know this is something new for you.
Yeah.
That's finally coming into action.
Yeah. I feel a lot of pastors said, "God bless you." You building? Oh, God bless you. Brother, God bless you on that one. I done did that and I don't want to do that no more. So I know with building gonna come its own another set of trials, but
it was a sermon. I remember a sermon. You said it was funny, but it's so true. It's like little demons creates little problems, big demons make big problems. But you can't have little demons handle big problems. It was something like that.
Yeah.
You did something, it was in Matthew, but you did it with demons.
I remember. I know what it was. That was when the Father brought his son.
He brought his son
to Jesus.
Right.
Because his disciples could not cast the demons out of the boy.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Jesus ended up casting the demon out of the boy. And the Father asked, how come? I took them to your disciples and they couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it.
And some things, he said, some things go up by
Fasting and prayer.
Yeah. I think one of my points when I did that sermon was that I used the child as to say, if you can't fight little demons,
Right.
Cast out little demons, you sure ain't ready.
Can't cast no big ones.
You sure ain't ready for big demons. And I say that to say that little demons is, you getting upset over little stuff.
Yeah.
You better save that because you can have bigger demons to fight.
Right.
Cancers.
Right.
Stuff that's going to your marriage and stuff that's going to attack your children. Those are bigger demons. So if you can't handle little demons, you sure won't be ready to handle bigger demons.
I tell you what, you handle some little demons, so hopefully you won't encounter no big ones.
I hope I don't. I hope I don't. Yeah.
But I appreciate you, man. We've been boys since '98, and we still going strong. Not an argument in sight. I appreciate our friendship here, and I hope you guys really enjoyed when Ebenezer talks with Pastor Milton Button. Obviously, I'm not Milton Button.
Kudos to Pastor Bunton. I love Pastor Bunton. Pastor Bunton, I can recall when I first met him on the shore. Yeah, man. I appreciate what he's doing. God's blessing him and elevating him and using him to do great things. I constantly keep him in my prayer. I really do.
He's definitely one of my favorite people.
He's doing a wonderful job and representing the kingdom.
Yep.
I really appreciate him. I pray God will bless him.
And just like you did when you came here, he's doing the same with BGC. He's using a lot of those who were on the shore to be involved. And you did the same thing, even when you moved. And I know I was supposed to end it, but I just love the fact that when you moved here, you didn't forget about where you were from.
Yeah.
And I mean, just about everyone that I could think of has been down here. But I know he shared a story where you literally canceled a service just so you can go to his installation at Ebenezer. And he said ever since then, he said, you've been one of, he told me personally, like, he's one of the most humblest guys, one of the nicest guys that he has. And that he would, he can trust you with his life because that gesture, just that one gesture of you canceling a service that you could have went to and you was like, look, we gotta go. And I know some family was of Shiloh was kin to him. And you counseled it for him. And he said, ever since then, man, he said, whatever he wants, he got it. Because he should have got a little surprise for you in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and the feelings are mutual. I really appreciate him. I really do. I mean, it's about the kingdom. It's not about ego and all that. We're in the same race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where it ought to be. And I wish it was like that with every pastor that I knew, but it's sometimes it's not. And it's what it is. You just keep on moving.
So thank you, Pastor Button, for this opportunity for me to interview the Master Prophet.
Oh Lord, that's
and Master Prophet Jr. And all right, guys, you have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of this wonderful October night that you are experiencing. I'm sure it's pretty cold out there right now. So
and October is Clergy Appreciation Month. So
that's right.
Appreciate your clergy.
That's right.
Or chaplain.
Send them a card, or if nothing else, go to them and let them know how appreciative you are of those that's been imparted into you and try to change your life, impacting your life for the better. So, with Ebenezer Talks, Dominick White, Pastor Dr. Jerome Lee Jr., we're out.